Hi YouTube, Darth here. I'm back from a long vacation and I'm ready to tell you about a weapon I've been using for the last few weeks. It's the A-91 Carbine, and it's next in my yes or no weapon review series. The A-91 is a carbine that doesn't seem to get a whole lot of love, and I'm not killed very often by it, so I wanted to see what the story was with this gun. So, should you use the A-91? Yes or no? I'm actually really split on this weapon, so I want to talk my way through this review before making a final call on the A-91. So for now, let's just talk about the weapon. First, the good stuff. As a bullpup, it's got better accuracy when on the move and hip firing, making it relatively accurate when hip firing in close quarters. At 800 rounds per minute, it's one of the faster firing carbines, only augmenting its close quarters ability. And it's a carbine, so it's available to every class. Now I want to talk about the not so good things, and these are pretty bad. The side-to-side recoil of this gun is the worst among the carbines. In fact, it's tied for the worst in Battlefield 4 with the P90 and the M240B, two weapons with far better time to kill. At 2.7 seconds, its in-the-chamber reload time is the second highest among the carbines, topped only by the Type 95. At 3.3 seconds, the empty reload isn't any better. Most other stats are mediocre. It has okay spread per shot increase, first shot recoil multiplier, and mediocre bullet velocity. What this all adds up to is a gun that is absolutely terrible beyond close to medium range. And having played with this weapon in Battlefield 3, and looking at SimThick, I can tell you that the gun plays relatively similarly in both games. If you were a fan of this weapon in Battlefield 3, you'll probably like it in Battlefield 4. As for me, I see the same detractions in both games holding this gun back. The biggest downside to the A-91 in the Battlefield series is that this close-range weapon has one of the worst reload times. It's exceptionally difficult to stay engaged close to the enemy with a weapon that reloads for almost 3 seconds. While playing with it, I often get 1 to 3 kills and reload, only to have another enemy round the corner and be caught in a reload. So if you try to counter this reload speed by playing more conservatively, at mid-range this gun completely flunks out because of the side-to-side recoil. You can try to compensate for this by bursting the weapon in very small increments, but because the damage model is standard, most targets are simply going to hop away to cover before they can be killed. But it's not all bad news. With an 800 RPM and some close quarters attachments, the A-91 can absolutely shred infantry at close range. The key to this weapon is to master the balance of when to ADS and when to hipfire, and the side-to-side recoil. I want to demonstrate this weapon's primary learning curve, the side-to-side recoil. It really is tied for the worst in the game. Let's look at the pattern for the A-91. It's got a .34 upwards recoil and a .5 left and a .5 right. This means that the resulting recoil spread is going to look like a random tornado when you hold the trigger down. This is particularly apparent at medium range and beyond. There's a few ways you can counter this recoil pattern. Firstly, you can simply pull your aim down while firing. This will counter the upward recoil, but not the side-to-side. To counter the side-to-side recoil, you'll want to burst the weapon. Remember that this weapon excels in close quarters, so the further you get from your target, the nastier the bullet spread gets, even when bursting. You'll want to try to use this weapon in situations where you have a target that's mid-range or closer. The A-91 is going to be one of those weapons that many of you are not going to find attractive, but I know there are some among the Battlefield players that might find this weapon suits them nicely. It's a high RPM close quarters weapon that lets you keep your crosshairs on target at longer ranges, even if the bullets go everywhere. What this means for someone looking to adopt the A-91 is this. You need to get used to hip firing, you need to get used to timing your reloads carefully, and you need to learn when to ADS versus hip fire. You're not going to be killing many targets at long range, though you may occasionally come up with them. So try to find locations on maps where you'll have a lot of cover. This will let you use the weapon in its best range, the close to mid. Additionally, this will give you opportunities to dive to cover while reloading for the extremely long 2.7 seconds. If you want to take out longer range targets, you're not going to be doing it with the A-91. Instead, equip a pistol that has some range, or play as an engineer and rocket snipe the long range targets. You'll have a much easier time than wasting 2 magazines and hoping your target never goes into cover. As for hip-firing this weapon, you're going to want to get comfortable and practice in hip-firing this weapon at less than 10 meters. That means if you come across enemies in close, avoid the temptation to use your sights, as it's additional time you could otherwise be shooting. The hip-fire on this weapon is pretty nice thanks to the fact that it's a bullpup. If you're accustomed to always using aim-down sights, this is going to be an adjustment for you. Hip-fire is one of the few advantages this weapon provides, so you might as well use it. Finally, you're going to have to time your reloads carefully. I'm pretty accustomed to weapons with around a 2-second reload time, so I find myself doing a little too much charging around with this weapon while reloading. I often reload after a single kill, and it got me killed plenty of times with the A-91. But don't be overly cautious about reloading either, because the empty reload is also atrocious. One way to mitigate the long reload is to play as recon and equip motion sensors. I'd often find myself running with both the tugs and the sensor balls. It really helped to reduce the likelihood I'd be surprised by an enemy at close range. However, if you're playing on a 64-player domination server, you're just not going to avoid being run over by 32 enemies simultaneously. So in summary, get into close quarters, stay near cover, use hipfire, and time your reloads. If you can stay safe during this weapon's biggest close quarters detraction, it's a serious contender. When I'm adopting a weapon for the first time, I like to take an inventory of what the top players use for this weapon. For the A-91, there were a few commonalities. Most players on BF4 stats seemed to prefer either the stubby or angled grips. This was a little surprising to me, as the compensator wasn't as popular as I expected with this weapon's side-to-side recoil. For a barrel, most players seemed to prefer the suppressor for reasons that became obvious that I will explain in a moment. And as for accessories, the laser was the most common, and the RDS sights were the most popular for optics, which was a no-brainer given the CQB nature of this weapon. So with all that in mind, here's what ended up working best for me. For the sight, I went with an RDS. My personal choice here was the Cobra. It's not obstructive, and I tend to gravitate towards its clear indicators. I also played quite a bit with the HD33 1X scope, which was also pretty good. If you get good at mastering the hipfire and ADS switch-up, hollow hipfire is a combo that might work well for you. For my accessory, I alternated between using the laser sight and nothing. The laser sight is a wonderful tool to have, but it's exceptionally dangerous if you forget to turn it off, as it can easily expose your position to enemies. On the A-91, it turns what's already a dangerous hipfire machine into a monster at hipfire. I tried a few variations for the barrel, but I found that the suppressor is the best attachment for this weapon. Here's why. While the compensator helps to defer some of that awful side-to-side recoil, it's really the suppressor that helps this gun in close quarters. Staying off the map is absolutely critical for a weapon with long reload times. With the suppressor, I found that I could kill a few enemies, hide, reload, and come back for more. Without it, I found myself often being gunned down in the middle of a reload by an enemy that was hunting me. Keep in mind though, that this attachment makes the bullets fall out of the barrel at 280 meters per second. Finally, in the underbarrel, I feel that I had the most success with the stubby grip. It gave me just a little extra accuracy at mid-range that helped to take out targets. And while I also like the ergo grip for this weapon, the ergo feels just a little unnecessary at the close-range hipfire from a bullpup. The A-91 is a weapon that is really specific to a certain type of player, so you'll want to find weapon attachments that work for you. As you can see, there's really no one specific way to equip this gun, but I definitely recommend the suppressor in most situations. Especially if you reload often, as I do. And the moment you've all been waiting for. Should you use the A-91? Yes or no? After some careful consideration, I'm afraid this gun is going to have to be a no. While it's got some great performance in close range, overall it's just mediocre compared to every other carbine. You do well to note that it's not the best in any category, and it's just not going to kill much at range. It's a very niche gun for a very niche player. It's not a bad gun, it's just not a gun for most players. And I definitely can't recommend picking up this weapon to the general population. If you like this weapon in Battlefield 3, it's relatively unchanged, and you'll probably still like this weapon in Battlefield 4. But there are so many other carbines that are better in CQB and overall. The SG553, the ACWR, and the MTAR-21 are all superior choices. They all have better reload speeds, less side-to-side recoil, and fire at higher rounds per minute. So you can try out the A-91 if I haven't deterred you. Let me know in the comments below how you fared. If you think I'm wrong about the A-91 and you think it's a weapon more people should use, I'd like to hear how players like you can better utilize the weapon. Thanks for watching, YouTube, and if you found this video helpful or insightful, please click like. If you'd like to see more Battlefield 4 videos, please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time, YouTube.